Project Viva podcast. My name is Akash Jain.
My name is Ray Manungi. And hey guys, for today's video, we got our editor Manav. You want to introduce yourself?
How you guys doing?
Yeah, so Manav is the one who usually edits the videos. He's also been in a couple. So today we're gonna do more of a debate video about what we believe. What factors do you need to use to rank players of all time or a GOAT debate? I know. I think I hinted towards my opinion in a couple of videos in the past, where I said I really don't believe there's an exact scenario where you can go on who's the best player of all time, because I just don't see there's a fair ranking. But I think today's video we're all just gonna discuss like what would you really need to use to find like a way to make a GOAT debate work. Like what factors do you need to include, what you need to leave out, and stuff like that. So I'm gonna like I said before, I don't really think there's a fair way right now to do it. Like right now, where people like people who are like diehard MJ fans or diehard LeBron fans, they all just have their own bias. But another thing is like with bias, anything you say, it's your opinion, so it's automatically biased. That I'm just gonna leave it out there like that. But to make a fair ranking system, I feel like you need to make like a whole like 50 player list and rank it throughout with the same system. And like today we're gonna try to debate on what we would use to rank players and what we would use not to rank players. So of course you want to start off with some of your ideas.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously you can go off by like some people go off by pure stats, some people go off by championship 6 is greater than 3 type stuff. But I mean, obviously it's like a little bit of both. And in my opinion, I have like this same-ish opinion as you. It's pretty much impossible to tell right now because, well, one person played in another era where threes weren't as apparent, but one person's playing in an era with zone defense. Both eras are completely different, and both players, if they were playing in the same era, then it would be easier to compare, but they're not, right? LeBron and MJ played in 2 different eras. So this video is not going to go on players per se, but what it is to like what factors determine the GOAT. In my opinion, it's probably a little bit of stats, probably a little bit of championships, but I mean, even with that, you can't really determine anything because the players played in different eras. Like right now, you can clearly say that LeBron's the best player in the NBA because comparatively to the people he's playing that are playing in his era, he's the best. He's coming out. And same thing with Jordan. You could say the people that played in Jordan's era, he was the best out of them. Same thing with Kobe. The people that played in the 2000s, Kobe was the best player in the 2000s. They all played in different.
Yeah. So like the eras is the only like where yes, you can go by stats, playoffs, like rings, MVPs, and all that type of stuff, right? But the problem is the different eras. That's where like the factor of how you rank players just doesn't work, right? Like some people like to go pure stats, but the thing is like the way the game was playing in the 90s and the game and where it's playing now, it's way different. So even stats now, I feel like are a little bit more or more like I feel
more inflated.
Okay, but if you're
shooting 3 and just
dropping like
points every game.
Yeah. Because back then the teams were different and the teammates were different, right? So like using it by wins per se isn't exactly the most efficient way because all you do is if you're doing it based on wins, it's just like by rings and all that stuff, right? But everyone doesn't have the same teammates, so that doesn't really play in efficiently too. Because if you're going by wins, and it's not just based on a particular player, right? It's reliant on the entire team. So that's why I think it's more of a, like, you'd have to use stats to do it. Like stuff like player efficiency ratings. What else is there? There's win shares, of course. There's over offensive and defensive efficiency, points per possession. So if you go through all that stuff, that's actually more centralized on the player itself rather than the entire team.
Yeah, I see it, but like you can't just necessarily be like, okay, one player like I don't want to say like Tim Duncan, who's been pretty much like he hasn't been carrying the Spurs the whole career. He has a strong supporting cast around him, right? So if you use your logic and his stats weren't like always like the greatest, like I don't think he ever dropped like 30 points a game in his whole career for regular season, right? He was just like a 20 point, 10 rebound guy, and most people like to rank him in his in their top 10 of all time, right? So like, how would you like? But so then you can't. So, but can you like?
Yeah,
What would you say to that?
like, counting his wins and consistency, which is not the best way to go, in my opinion. Just by
Wait,
winning.
what would you say to like my Tim Duncan example?
Well, to be honest, I don't have too much on that, but it's all based on perspective, right? And interpretation. Like what you decide a player is best for is like based on only your perspective and opinion. Like some people might say that a player is really good based on shooting percentage, or some people might say it's based on the number of steals they got or the number of rebounds they got. It's all based on whatever you believe, right? Or it's based on however efficient they are. So to that extent, yes, there is a way you can use it for that too. Like, there's no set determined way to actually determine who is the best player. I guess the only way would be is to look at each one of the stats to see whoever has like the most like first places for the stats, and then you could probably like come up with a way for that. But if it's the Tim Duncan example, I honestly don't have too much that goes against it. You're right. There's definitely a lot you can do because you can be a supporting player too, and you can do a lot through that.
Yeah, and I definitely wait. Can I add something? I definitely agree with what Manav said that all the players' teammates are different. Like when you're comparing players, you should compare, or when you're comparing anything in general, they should be compared in a controlled environment, meaning like all their surroundings should be the same to get like a fair comparison. So it's impossible to do that because some players when they play like let's see.
Yeah, not only that too, but like this goes against my previous point too. But like stats can often lie. Like different stats do different things, right? And you can base a statistic off of anything and develop a stat for anything. But the thing is, you can use that. You can manipulate those stats to work towards your favor. So it's like it's very fluid. It's not like you can't always rely on a stat to support your point. You have to come up with some sort of reason. And like Akash was saying, yeah, the controlled environment, there's not really a way to determine who's the best. If you don't have like the same people on like each team, like you're going to have different players on each team if you're going to use wins, but it's not a controlled environment. Like the situations are going to be different each time. So there's no set way to actually determine who's better than the other.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you on the topic of like a controlled environment, right? Like as if like you're doing like an experiment type thing, right? So like if there's ever a possibility, because there won't be any possibility where we can put all these players with the same supporting cast and see what happens. That never be a possibility. So like we can so that would be a great way to do it, but we physically literally can't even do that. But we need to find like from what we have right now, like what like stats, the performance they did in the playoffs and stuff like that, like accomplishments, MVP rings, and all that type of stuff, right? We need to put all of that into like a fair scale, in my opinion. But there's not really like what people say. They try to weight things. Like some people be like, okay, like LeBron's 3 rings, his 3 rings matter more than Jordan's 6 rings. Like I don't get the weightage on that type of stuff. Like some people people be like, okay, Jordan's first team all defense appearances
on that because LeBron. I mean, we're not going to get into this, but statistically, LeBron has had like much harder opponents in the finals. But it's not like it's an easy comparison or anything. Whereas you can discount all of Jordan's rings for LeBron's,
Yeah.
But
but like then people be like, okay, Jordan has like 10 first team all defensive appearances, and while LeBron has 5, and they try to like, some people be like, okay, Jordan's defense was higher and stuff like that. But like when you weight things to over, like LeBron's 3 versus Jordan's 6, right? People be like, LeBron's 3 were more difficult than Jordan's 6, right? When like that, you see a problem with the weightage. There's not only with LeBron and Jordan. Some people say that about Tim Duncan because he won some of his rings in the 2000s against easy opponents like the Cavs and a couple other teams, right? So like people try to weight things higher than the others. So that's when it gets a little bit unfair, in my opinion. Like when you try to push a narrative, like yes, I understand like LeBron rings might have been harder for him to win, but like doesn't mean like Jordan did like Akash said, LeBron has faced harder opponents in the finals, but I don't think it's fair to like weight things more like Jordan's scoring ability weighted more than LeBron because Jordan has won like 9 scoring titles while LeBron only has won 1, right? These players play in different eras and that type of stuff. So like I don't know, like if you're trying to come up with a fair skill, you need to figure out like each and individual thing, right? You need to like factor into everything that you would use, like to compare a player, right? Like how well they played, their accomplishments, their stats, and everything together, and then you have to put them all in a weightage. Like you compare them like step by step. So like if you go like okay, you go like rings and MVPs first, right? Like and then you can compare it to the others. You give the advantage. You compare each individual player and you rank them fairly from that. But also then it won't even be fair because it's your opinion what matters more, right? Sometimes people will be like, okay, like let's say individual ability like scoring. Some people will be like, oh, okay, Kobe was a better scorer than Jordan or something like that, right? Those type of opinions could come up. So when you need a bit. So like what Mana was saying, like stats are pretty much just combination of what happened on the court. Just everything compiled together into simpler terms to what happened on the court to what happened and to simpler terms where everyone can understand, right? What the thing with stats is, like Mana was alluding to earlier, there's more than meets the eye. There's some of them can be like inflated, some of them can be can be wrong and give the wrong idea in some ways. So like that's where people be like, okay, using stats, this player is better than the other player, right? But that's where some people will attack that other person by saying like stats don't tell the true story. But in my opinion, and one of you, let me know if you agree with this. If stats are a combination of what real events happen on the court, then why do people say stats don't tell the full story?
Because stats can be manipulated, and stats are based on a certain subject. So whilst a certain stat applies only to a certain thing, there's no way to combine all of that into one stat. That's why people say stats don't say the full story, because a stat is primarily focused on one subject rather than the entire deal. And if we take account into what you said about the opponents being better, so you can't discredit the other players' rings, well, the opponents being better opponent or a worse opponent is also based on their statistical data. So like either way, it still comes down to the stats. So you're determining that the opponent's team is worse or better based on whatever statistical data there is on their team. So when you bring it back, it still comes down to stats. And while they might not be entirely reliable and stats can be manipulated, right now, stats are the one way you can put it out there accurately, and you can there's a set formula to determine who's better than what. There's no opinion involved in a stat. There's no bias. There's no perspective. It's all just on the data. It's just a visual way to see whatever happens on the court, and it's an easy way to compare and contrast and determine to see who would be the better person.
But that's not.
But Martin, you just said stats can be manipulated.
Stats can be manipulated. That's why you take into account multiple stats and you look for credible sources. And if you can't find anything credible, then you calculate it on your own. See, the thing with stats is it can go multiple different ways. Even one miscalculation can lead to an entirely different stat. So what you have to do is you got to make sure that there's a credible source where you're getting your data from.
But we're not calculating. The stats are accurate. It's not like we
don't know it, though. You don't know the stats are accurate.
Well, they're on NBA. Like if you go like on the NBA.com advanced stats, I'm pretty sure they're accurate.
It's not like doing it by hand. It's like it's an actual like algorithm that does it.
No, but like what I mean, like stats are like I think stats are misinterpreted.
Because I would think. A couple of years ago, Harden would not. If Harden took this many shots, a couple of years ago, he would be averaging the same amount of points. It's not like he has gotten better. He has gotten better, but if he took this many shots like a couple of years ago, he would still be averaging the same amount of points that he is now. Harden's averaging close to 40
great point. Depending on the year that you take into consideration. Like, are you looking at each player's prime, or are you taking into consideration one person's prime while another person's like end of the career or the beginning of the career?
What I would say when you're determining like the best players of all time, you have to look at their absolute peak, absolute peak of what they can do. That's how you compare. Because like if you compare whole careers, then like people's careers, some of them, like, yes, like from start to finish, like Kobe's first couple years, they were not the greatest because he was a rookie and a sophomore, right? He was not playing because he just came out of high school and didn't have the NBA experience. But once he got it, he became the great he is. Like, even Jordan's first rookie year was good. His second year got injured, right? So, like, and then LeBron first year rookie was decent. Sophomore year he went incredible. So you can't exactly start off with their beginning, and then also the end of the career. It's like Kobe's end of his career. That was not like even though he had some amazing moments, he was not the same player he was before because of the injuries and stuff like that. Jordan's end of his career on the Wizards, he's not the same Jordan he was. Right?
The same.
Factor in. So in my opinion, you have to take the absolute peak of each player. So like Jordan, you take his absolute peak, like what you believe what was his best play. But then that's also like you can go a little bit more biased. So you can look into the stats and find which one is the absolute peak, which year or two was Jordan's absolute peak, and then you can compare to the others on their absolute peak. But like players that have longer like peaks, right? Like someone like LeBron who's been in his prime for like 10, 12 years or something like that, right? And he never actually had like a highest. Like I heard this argument: Jordan's peak was the highest ever, while LeBron had a longer prime, but never peaked as much as Jordan. I heard that argument before.
That's the same thing. And he's super consistent, just like LeBron. LeBron hasn't been consistent wins-wise, but stats-wise, LeBron's probably the most consistent player of all time. He's extremely he keeps getting better every year.
Yeah. So like, Manav. So like, if we even do like by the peak, right? You see what I mean? Like, yes, like at the absolute peak, someone can be that high, but like it would be unfair to players who've been like near their peak for multiple years. Right, that's not in consideration.
But
that's true.
So here's the other thing with that argument. Okay? Basically, you guys are kind of throwing out like the era or the time in which these players played, because when Jordan played, there wasn't that many people shooting threes. Jordan was shooting mid-range shots, going in for layups. If Jordan played in today's era, he would probably shoot many more threes than he did when he was in his prime. So his stats be inflated, more inflated than they were back when he did play. So that's contradicting your argument that stats are the only way to compare. I don't think that you can really compare with stats. I don't think you can compare players within eras with stats, but you can compare players that are in the same era with stats. If they're in a different era, it's hard to compare that, because right now, like I said before, LeBron is like undoubtedly the best player in the 2010s, right? Kobe's the best player in the 2000s, and Jordan's the best player in the 90s. That's undoubted. You know that because when you compare them to their competition, that their era, they are on top. They're superior. But when you compare them to each other, that's where it gets a little hard.
Yeah, okay, now I also agree. Now, Akash brought a big point. Like, yes, stats now could be a little bit more inflated, right? Like, there's going to be a difference. Like, if you swap, like, Jordan playing in the 90s, if let's say, like, Jordan was playing now and he had to learn to adjust his game, I would guarantee that Jordan was going to shoot more threes because that's how the game is played now. So the era point is it's just, like, the variable here that we cannot, like, eliminate because it's a very valid, like, issue that we cannot go over about. But I think we should not think of these what if scenarios. Like, okay, if Jordan can play in the 2010s, obviously he'll shoot more threes, right? I don't think we need to count. We just need to see what they did during their time. Like these what if scenarios about if Jordan can play now, he will shoot more threes. Like, no, you're not supposed to put that in your argument. You're supposed to do what he did in his career. So that when he was in the 90s, what Jordan exactly did, and what Kobe did in the 2000s, what LeBron did in 2010s, what Kareem did in the 70s, what Magic did in the 80s, like what Will did in the 60s, right? You just put what they did in that time. You should not be making what if scenarios. Like you can't say like, oh, if Magic was playing now, he'll have a jumper and he would be the greatest player ever. You can't.
In your opinion, okay, I'm just gonna prove that wrong. In your opinion, who's the best scorer of all time? In your opinion? Yeah.
Score?
The best pure scorer.
Pure score.
Kobe, right? I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
But if you just compare stats, if you compare it like that, what they did in their primes or like whenever they played, then who would be the best scorer? If you just compared like whenever they played.
LeBron.
LeBron? The best pure scorer.
Yeah. Wait, you mean like just comparing stats?
That's essentially what you just said. You said just compare what they did in their careers.
Oh, then yeah, then would be between Jordan and Wilt.
So you're saying it's between Jordan and Wilt by just your logic of just comparing their stats. Okay.
Yeah, you just disproved my whole thing.
Yeah, so it would be between Wilt and Harden.
I see it.
Probably. Maybe and Jordan.
Not even Harden.
30 points a game.
I don't know.
Harden's been averaging over 35 points a game for the past like 2 seasons. And he's been consistently averaging over 30 points a game. Wilt only did that. See, if you don't compare the eras, there you go. Wilt played against people that were like 5'5", 5'6". Harden's playing against LeBron. Harden's playing against the LeBrons of the world, the Kawhis of the world. Harden's playing against those people. Wilt playing against people
I see it.
who literally had played in the NBA as a part-time job. I'm not taking anything away from Wilt, but using your logic, that's how it is. If Harden played against those people, he would be scoring he would be averaging those 50 points a game, those whatever 20 rebounds a game, whatever he averaged. If Harden played against those people. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying specifically that Wilt is not better than Harden. Wilt is better than Harden, but if you're just bringing up that pure scoring type mentality that it just matters what they did in their era, that doesn't really work. That logic.
Okay. Yeah, you're a lot. Yeah, I didn't really. Okay, so you kind of disproved my point of like what they did in the exact era. So that's where like this debate kind of like a fair scale kind of crumbles, like because you can really disprove anything, like what Akash just said. Like if you're really thinking about it, who's the best score, like yeah, if you're looking at one category, who's the best scorer during their era? Yeah, you're gonna say Wilt because he dropped like what he had a 50-point season, 40-point season, 30-point seasons during the eras of the 60s, but he didn't play against the greatest a competition. No disrespect to Wilt, but he took advantage of what the situation was and became one of the greatest players ever. While Harden here right now I agree with the last 6 years, Harden was in like top 3 MVP voting for a reason because of how well he was scoring. So if you move Harden back an era or two, you don't know what happens there. See, we're like what? But my problem is putting these what if scenarios in. Like if you say like okay, let's say you put Jordan into this era, he would just be better than LeBron. Right? Like I hear that argument. Okay, plop Jordan and LeBron. You know, when LeBron started his career, plop Jordan into the league, Jordan would have a better career. How do you even determine that? Like people just say that like type of things. That's where I feel like it gets a little unfair. But yeah, Akash kind of disproved like the era point. So like if I'm being realistic, then we can have to kind of say Wilt is like the greatest player ever because the guy what he did in his era. Like there's apparently in his era they did not record blocks or steals, but people were reporting that Wilt was getting like 7-8 blocks a game and like 4 or 5 steals a game too. So if you use Mano's logic, then Wilt is the best player if you're just using stats if they put in the steals and blocks into it, right?
Another thing. So in my opinion, I think the only real way that you may be able to compare some of these players is with the eye test, like if you do it fairly. So with the eye test, in my opinion, and this is what I think, like right off the bat, I think Kobe is the best scorer of all time. He could really just do it all, but stats can say.
Okay, but what are you using to determine that he's the best player?
Yeah, wait. Your eye test is your eye test is your opinion. Any opinion's kind of biased. It's always biased. It's your opinion's biased. Yeah.
What about for you?
Okay, yeah, Kobe's the best.
With your eye test, what do you think? Who's the best?
No, but okay. Here's the thing: if I use my eye test, and I would say like, yes, Kobe's probably the best scorer of all time. Who's the best defender? I don't know who. I need to look into it a little bit more, right? But if it's my opinion, it's always biased. Like that's something I'm trying to get out here. If it's your opinion, it's always biased. So that means it's not fair. Like that's why there hasn't been a fair scale created because it's always been biased to something. That's why this like Mara brought up the idea of using stats, which is the only fair way that would have no bias into it. But the problem is that
even the stats are influenced by how people played when the stats were recorded. So the stats are biased, but they're corrupted by the play style of the teams that played when the stats were recorded. But I do agree with you that no one puts their own opinion into those stats. But indirectly, they are corrupted by the play style.
Yeah, see, so I think when the point we're trying to get across during this like video debate is that there isn't really a fair way to determine it. Even if you say your eye test, that's still biased. If you use stats, like we've been talking about how during like the comparison of eras and stuff, the stats are manipulated into a way. So I don't know if there could be a possible fair way to do it. Like Manav, you got any thoughts right now?
Stats is a fair way, but it's not the best way. That's what I was trying to say.
But like no, but think about it here. Like stats are influenced by like the players' play. If the players' play is different in different eras,
of course.
right?
That's what I'm saying. It's not the best way.
But it's not too fair.
Yeah, but I
mean,
I don't know.
You wouldn't really know unless you've seen Jordan play and unless you've seen LeBron play. You wouldn't really have an idea of that. And even then, you'd probably be biased, like Renee said, because you'd be nostalgic for one of them. Yeah. Okay, anyway, I just want to ask this, just out of curiosity. Who is your best scorer of all time? Just out of curiosity. Your favorite scorer. Yeah, best scorer of all time.
Best scorer?
Yeah, same. Mine was Kobe.
Yeah, I'm going to refrain from saying anything because I like to remain on a neutral side.
Okay. No, but like, here's the thing. Like, even then, like, even if you do, like, even us saying it's a little biased, like, yes, I obviously have my own opinion of who I think is the best player of all time, but it's biased. That's why I said on previous videos before. I think I said it a couple of times. There will never be a top 10 list of all time from this channel because it doesn't make sense.
There's no
fair way to do it.
List. You're completely right in that.
Like, even, I think there's a start bench cut one where we had Shaq, Hakeem, and Tim Duncan. You remember that one?
Any one of those players could be cut in a second. There's not one player that wouldn't be cut or benched. Everyone you show that
there's no easy way to
would have a different opinion. Well, there might be people who have the same opinion, but there will be people who would cut people that you would start in that list.
Yeah, because there's no fair way. But like, let's say we do something like right now, we do a start bench cut with LeBron, Giannis, and Kawhi. Like, I think it's pretty obvious where we're gonna go with that, right? Because they played in the same era and we've seen what they've done. When you do same area, it's so easy to compare. That's why you've seen us do like we did our top 10 players of the
10 point guards, season. Top 10 shooting guards, top 10 small forwards, top 10 power forwards, and top 10 centers coming.
And then we're also in a video that's in the work is top 15 players of the decades. That is gonna come soon too. And those when you have in the same era, the era is pretty much based on a decade. So like, that's when the play has been like when we would say the play has been changed, right? From like the 2000s, where it was mainly a lot of scrappy defensive, like 80-point game, like people the game's going up to 80 points. While this era, people are dropping 140 like it's nothing. While in the 90s, it's more physical stuff like that.
I think, in my opinion, Tracy McGrady's a scorer that kind of scores like Harden. He gets hot. When he gets hot, he just keeps sinking shots. And what do you think? If he played in today's era, would he be comparable to Harden, in your opinion?
Yeah, you would be, but like, yeah, he would be, and he would have probably a better career because teams will be better on like medicine side, so he can prevent the injuries that he faced during his career, right? But like, you can't do these what if scenarios. Like, that's where I just don't see it as a like possibility to add this to your argument, like a what if scenario. But then we also said like stats earlier don't really say the full story. They can be manipulated, but they're also probably if I'm being real right now, I think the way right now that the most fair way right now, like Mono said earlier, is probably using stats, but like
when you use stats, you need to have a factor that you can add to the stats that would be able to take the actual era and inflate it a little bit. So like people score more in this era, you would need to have a stat that could inflate the stats of the previous era. So if you're trying to compare LeBron and Jordan or something like that, you would need to have some sort of formula that would inflate Jordan's stats just slightly to see if he would take more threes and more of that stuff. But even then, it would be hard. It would be hard to. It would still be unfair.
It would be unfair.
What if Jordan doesn't develop a 3-point shot, which I'm pretty sure he would? He would develop a 3-point shot. But yeah.
But that's your opinion, Akash. Like, so obviously, it might be a more likely opinion, like from what we know of Jordan, what we know of him. Like we don't know. There's millions and millions of possibilities that we can place if there's a what if scenario. So then my original point, I think I said earlier in the video, but just looking about what they actually did in their career, Akash kind of knocked it down with his talking about like the era of the ball they're playing, right? So if there's any way to make the era of what they're playing basketball is, like you can factor into stats and try to change it a little bit, but even then it's still being biased, because wherever you change on stats is just you manipulating it and you being biased because it's your opinion how you're changing it. Like pretty sure one year, his 50-point year, he played 48 minutes a game. No one playing 48 minutes a game at any time after that. So like stuff like that. How do you exactly change it? What do you want to do to change it? Right? Like people like try to make stats per like 100 possessions. Like that's another thing. Like a stat per 100 possessions. See what a player creates. But even then, that's like okay per 100% possessions. See how much points they would score, how many assists, how many rebounds, how many steals and blocks, and etc. They would do per 100 possessions. That is also
like Pete Maravich. You can't use that stat with him. The 100 possession stat, because you don't know how many threes he attempted. There was no 3-point line when he played. You can't use that. Pete Maravich was one of the best shooters that ever existed, but you wouldn't be able to tell that.
And there's newspaper articles about him launching
3-point back then, so you can't make that comparison, which is extremely sad. There was no stat for recording that, Pete Maravich was shooting this many shots behind the 3-point line. You don't have that stat. So it's definitely hard, even with that 100 possessions stat. It's hard to compare those players as well. So what we're getting at here is that there's no actual way to compare these players if they're in different eras. If they're in the same eras, it's pretty straightforward because they're playing the same competition. They're playing with the same. Yeah, exactly.
The same style of ball. And with the same defenses too, because in the 90s there's no zone defense.
Checking in the 90s.
Well, people like to argue, okay, but they had the hand checking they got rid of that in the 2000s and they added zone defense. In the 90s, zone defense was completely illegal. You had to play man to man. If you do, you get tech or something.
Yeah, it's just like times change, and so do players with it.
Yeah. Like Mono said, times change, different things happen. So that's why I feel like it's kind of it's pretty much impossible, and you go off by your opinion. You just be like, okay, whatever you think is personally your first skill, you go for it. Think who's your player. You can go argue all you want, try to change others' opinions, but in the end, there's no straightforward way to do it. That was the whole point of this debate, trying to allow everyone to understand the different facets that people use to rank these players, and trying to shoot down the ideas that there's a fair and straightforward way to do it. In the end, there's definitely no fair way to do it, but I think everyone can have their opinions, right? It's definitely fair for you to have your own opinion. If you don't agree with us, if you believe there's a straightforward way, yeah, please tell me in the comment section down below. If you can definitely go out and argue with your friends or your colleagues, whoever you want, and try to change their opinion. And you'll see by explaining your points, they can explain their points, and you can try to have a friendly debate here off your opinion. But there's no in book way that's proven, like that's factual, that you could use to make this debate actually work. But you can definitely use your opinion and have fun with it. Like that's what I used to do. Like a couple years ago, I was used to I'm a LeBron fan, so like I used to watch Nick Wright, Kendrick Perkins, and Shannon Sharp all the time because they're all like LeBron lovers pretty much. I was just like, these guys are cool. But then I see like Skip Bayless and he's annoying. But like they all have their opinions. I've just learned to just agree with, just let it be. They have their opinions. There's not much you can really prove to them that they can change their mind unless their mind changes on their.
But
that type of stuff.
Those guys definitely. I mean, it's definitely
you guys have
fun to watch those guys. Still fun to watch them prove their opinions. Fun to see them justify what they have, and the debate is always fun to watch. So people should keep debating about this, but you should still know that everyone has their own opinion, and it's not possible to really determine who the GOAT is.
At least. Obviously,
we all have our own list on who the GOAT is, but it's not possible to like fairly, without making anyone mad, type of prove who the GOAT is.
Well, I mean, when you're determining a best player, anyway, everyone's obviously going to get mad, but there's no like valid way.
There's no valid way.
Yeah, there's no valid way, but you can go out and have fun. You can watch people debate, or you can debate yourself. It's obviously a fun discussion, and it's something you guys can talk about. Even if people ask like Jordan sometimes, like, who do you think is the best player of all time? He doesn't even answer it. He's just like, I don't. It's up to the media, up to you, who you think. It's your opinion. I'm pretty sure he said that a couple of times. Some people ask him, do you think you're better than LeBron? He says, no, it's up to your opinion. Like, even like these great players are saying it's up to your opinion. You can have fun with it and decide on your own. All three of us here have our own.
Because they haven't played in the NBA right now. Paul Pierce, take him for example. Paul Pierce played in the 2000s and the 10s, right? As soon as he got out of the NBA, he was starting to say, "Oh, he's the best player. Yeah. He's better than Dwayne Wade. He had a better career than Dwayne Wade." All that stuff. But then, just a year later, after observing the NBA from the outside, his analysis of the NBA became like a little more fair and less biased. So these guys change their own opinions, which is good. They grow and they can see that they played in a different era, and it's hard to compare this stuff. But in that case, Paul Pierce and Dwayne Wade did play in both the same eras. But still,
Kind of, yeah. But it's all opinions. You can have fun with it, like we've been saying. I think we reached to a point in the debate where we hit the stalemate. Like the original way to was talking about like if there was a fair way to do it. We all try to find different ways that we believe is fair, but it's always going to get shut down because there's always another opinion or another way that makes more sense, but doesn't really. Do you two have any final remarks before we're gonna end off this video?
No, I don't think so. We've covered basically everything.
I don't really have any final remarks. I just want to say like everyone can have their own opinion, and everyone should still keep debating this topic, but just know that everyone has a different opinion on this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Karsh. You can go out and have fun, debate. We're just here trying to say that, like, yeah, you can't factually prove if someone's better than the other, but you can go out and have fun by bringing up your own opinions and stuff like that. This video is not to discourage anyone. It's just to show
and also the video
more light into the discussion.
Just to prove that, like, if someone says one player is better than the other, don't just start hating on them on Twitter and stuff like that. Especially that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, don't be toxic.
And have a nice
ask for their opinion.
Have a nice and
let them
say
their
instead
opinion.
of just see what their point of view is.
I think that's gonna end the video. Thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe, and from our two previous videos are gonna show up on the screen here too. Bye guys.